Canon just announced it, so I'm going to compare the Canon 5D Mark IV to the 4-year-old 5D Mark III, and I'll also share why I wouldn't recommend upgrading to this camera to someone whose main focus is recording videos. I'll touch on what's new, what stayed the same, what I wish they would have put in this camera, and what I would recommend someone do who's currently filming videos on Canon cameras and lenses, and I'll give some options for those people. If you're more interested in the photography features of this camera, I have a completely different video that you can check out up here or down in the description where I compare photo-specific features. In this one, I'll be doing video-related things. So first up, the changes or what's new with this camera versus specifically the Mark III version. Before I dive into the absurdity of the 4K video settings and options of this camera, let's cover a few of the new features quickly, and then I'll go into my rant. For higher frame rates, you can shoot 30 frames per second in 4K, 60 frames per second in 1080p, and 120 frames per second in 720p. If you're using SDXC cards or compact flashes that are over 256 gigabytes, you can use the exFAT file system, so your video files won't get broken into those 4 gigabyte chunks. The 5D Mark IV adds a new LCD touchscreen, so you can change settings or rack focus to the different parts of your image, even while recording. Focusing in live view with the Mark III is basically unusable and super slow, so they've added that Dual Pixel Autofocus that's been in the 70D and the 80D for a while now. This allows you to continually focus in servo mode with focus tracking of objects and faces as they move around. You can change the sensitivity and speed of the focus racking too. These are autofocus features that I don't even have in my Canon C100 Mark II, which is in their cinema line that I bought for $5,500 almost 2 years ago in early 2015. Even though this touchscreen autofocus technology was in the 70D in the middle of 2013, this really just shows me that there's no consistency throughout Canon about what video features will be in their photo cameras and what will be in their cinema video cameras, and what's a high-end feature and what's a low-end option. It's just a big disconnect. There is a new HDR video mode which films at 50 or 60 frames per second and alternates different exposure values and then combines them down to 25 or 30p. This isn't available in 4K though, only in 1080p. For time-lapse shooters, there's now a built-in intervalometer and a mode to create the time-lapse video directly in the camera, which is nice. Another feature already found in lower-end models like the 80D. The ISO goes up to 25,600 in HD and 12,800 in 4K. And you now have the ability to connect via Wi-Fi to the Canon Camera Connect app, which allows you to remote control different settings, autofocus, start the recording, etc. from a mobile device. Now let's dive into the 4K video recording. The biggest change video-wise from the Mark III to the Mark IV is you can now film in full DCI 4K, which is 4096 by 2160 at a 17:9 ratio, up to 30 frames a second, which is about a 1.64, 1.74x crop, depending on how you do the math. This is so they can get a 1:1 pixel sampling ratio, which minimizes issues like moire on shirts with patterns or lines on them. This means if you're shooting with a 50mm lens on and you want to shoot in 4K, crops it in and it's almost an 85mm. A 24 becomes a 40. This makes it really hard to get a true wide-angle shot at 4K on this camera unless you have a really wide lens. I've gotten used to the 1.5 crop sensor on the C100 Mark II that I'm shooting on, but that camera lets me use EFS lenses like the 10-18 that I use, which the 5D Mark IV does not. So even though it could use those lenses because it does have a crop, similar to how the C100 and C300s work, it just doesn't let you. It would be great if you could change between this cropped mode and a full sensor, even pixel binned image when you're not filming moire susceptible subjects. The A7R II lets you do that. Why can't we use the full frame like you can in 1080p? 4K video on the Mark IV is recorded in motion JPEG at 500 megabits per second. This is the same 4K file system as the 3.5-year-old 1DC, which didn't really sell particularly well, and the prices dropped from $12,000 to $5,000 and less if you buy it used. Why not include a 300 megabit XF codec found in the XC10 or the C300 Mark II, a video codec that's current. On the Mark IV, a 64 gigabyte card will fill up after 17 minutes of 4K. 1 hour of 4K is 220 gigabytes. That's crazy. A Sony is 40 gigabytes for 4K for an hour. This camera is just not efficient. The larger file size doesn't necessarily equal better video quality either. It's still 8-bit color depth, even if it's 422 sampling. In comparison, 1080p on the 5D Mark III is either about 90 megabits for all I or 30 megabits in IPB, and my C100 Mark II films at 24 or about 28 megabits per second. 500 megabits a second is a ridiculous rate for someone that's going to record for long periods of time, not just a few seconds here and there. If you're planning to film long-form content, multi-camera interviews, events like weddings, talking head, get ready to buy a ton of high-capacity fast memory cards and a bunch of hard drives. A standard 1 hour 4-camera shoot for me would be a terabyte in 4K with these cameras. That means more time I have to wait for them to transfer, more time maybe transcoding to ProRes if my computer can't handle the motion JPEG well, filling hard drives after hard drives. It's just not something I'm going to do. If I was going to switch to 4K, I'd want a much more efficient 4K file format like you get from Sony or other brands. Also, you're probably not even going to be able to film in 4K on the cards you have, the compact flash, the SD cards you own. The bit rate is way too high for those, and you'll need top-of-the-line cards, but this camera doesn't even utilize some of the higher speeds on the market right now, like the UHS-2 SD cards. So here are the 31 seconds that Canon gave to this huge issue, in my opinion, during their 15-minute video overview of the 5D Mark IV's video features.
The 5D Mark IV uses one CF card. Now Type 1 and UDMA7 are supported, and there's one SD card slot. You're especially going to want to use the UDMA7 card for 4K video capture. Now, here's the deal with these cards. 4K video requires cards capable of maintaining sustained write speeds, which is not always the write speed printed on the card, which may be the peak write speed. So be sure you research your card purchase.
So that's not very descriptive or exact, but it's just something that they'll probably have to share more information about. And you can't even record in UHD 16:9, which is what most people think 4K is now anyway, so you're going to crop the edges a little bit in post. All this ranting to say I'm not stoked on that crop factor. I don't like the motion JPEG high bitrate file sizes. And if I wanted to shoot more 4K content, there are so many more cameras out there I'd recommend before this one, but I'll talk about those a bit more later. So what's the same? Canon is sticking with the same compact flash and SD card slots, even though you can use some that are a little bit faster, which you'll definitely need if you're filming 4K. It is UDMA7 and UHS-1 compatible for those cards. The camera bodies look pretty much identical from the distance as they're pretty much the same dimensions. The Mark IV just weighs 60 ounces less. It also uses the same LPE6 batteries, so if you have a bunch of those, they'll still work. It does come with a newer LPE6N battery though. So what do I wish the 5D Mark IV could have been? I am basing this opinion on the fact that I've used Canon cameras for about 5 years now. I've had a Mark III for about 4 years. There's a huge gap between versions. I'm looking at what other companies have been innovating and doing and cameras I've tested from companies like Sony, and also what Canon offers on other models like their cinema line or even their entry-level stuff. Number one, they should have had clean 4K output like they do on the 1DX Mark II. Number two, they should have had Canon log profiles. They should have had video features like zebras, waveform, and focus peaking. They should have had full frame 4K. I know they wanted to cut down on moire and give you pixel for pixel, but give us the option to crop in or do full frame. We can get full frame on 1080. You should have included a 16:9 resolution for UHD, and I'd love to see an electronic viewfinder hybrid in these things so I can do things while filming outside when I can't see the LCD. I'm used to using electronic viewfinders on other video cameras like my C100 or other mirrorless cameras, and the ability to use that while recording is much, much needed. You also don't get a tilt on the LCD screen. It's still flat here on the back. So if you're shooting up high, down low, and you can't see it, you can't do the touchscreen autofocus stuff. And there should be in-camera body stabilization or sensor stabilization by now. Shooting handheld with a lens without IS, you're still not gonna be able to do it on these cameras. So who do I recommend this camera to, or who do I think should upgrade to it? If you love filming on the 5D and you're not concerned about 4K, you're still gonna shoot in 1080p, the Dual Pixel Autofocus upgrades on this camera are really great for wedding videography, commercial shoots, talking heads, things like that. The face tracking is really great, but I would keep filming at 1080p unless you want to deal with those huge file sizes. If you're going to stick with Canon long-term and film videos, I have 4 different options for you. Number 1, keep shooting on what you already have and focus your money and time on non-camera related gear to upgrade to, or invest in courses to get better at your cinematography, your storytelling, or your editing. Number 2, take all your EF and EFS lenses and jump to a cinema line camera like the C100 or C300 and start using a dedicated video camera for your productions instead of a hybrid stills first kind of camera. Number 3, take all your camera lenses from Canon and use them on Sony camera bodies like the A7 or FS5 series, or go to like a Blackmagic Ursa Mini if you want another cheap 4K option. And the 4th option would be to leap to Red, to a Raven or a Scarlett W to put your EF glass on there to get a really good image. As much as I want to switch to Sony, and we've started to try to, I think I'm gonna stick with Canon right now for my current plan. Keep filming on the C100 Mark II. When I want 4K, I'll go to the C300 Mark II, and I'm gonna experiment with Red cameras for certain projects if it allows for that. But for the long form videos I produce for YouTube and for clients, things like online courses, live events, documentary storytelling, going to other countries, going all in on something like Red doesn't really make sense from a usability standpoint for me. I need cameras that make good looking images, but that also have quick physical controls, can film for hours in harsh environments, and don't have ridiculously large file sizes, hence why I love my C100 so much. I honestly wouldn't recommend the 5D Mark IV to anyone that's serious about filmmaking or video production, not as a main camera. It's definitely not the best camera out there for its price. And if you're a stills first user and the video features are just a bonus, this might be a good camera for you. But in 2016, I can't really recommend spending $3,500 on what is essentially a nice to use 1080p camera without pro features like XLR inputs, waveform monitors, electronic viewfinder, flat log profiles, focus peaking, and more. I hope you enjoyed this detailed comparison of the 5D Mark IV to the 5D Mark III. If you want more videos from me in this kind of format in the future, where I give my opinion a bit more than just giving features and list of different upgrades that it has, click like below this video, share it, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'll be making more like this. So I've been Caleb Wojcik of DIY Video Guy. Thanks so much for watching.